Good morning, everybody. How you doing? My name is Mike from SourceFind Asia, and this episode is the sourcing table, where we talk to friends and people on our network, other entrepreneurs who are doing really cool stuff in Asia and worldwide. So in this episode, we're talking to a really good friend of mine. His name is Don Wilder. Don is one of my best friends. He's a great guy, and he has a super interesting story. Don is a true nomad. He's one of the pioneers, in my opinion, of physical product game. He was on the early end of crowdfunding boom, the physical product crowdfunding boom. And, Don's got a great story. Like Michael Michelini, for example, he was really out there doing things before a lot of other people were, and just getting down and dirty in Guangzhou and Shenzhen and learning the hard way, really. He's got endless amount of stories. I hope to have him back on the sourcing table for an interview, or even better, get him on the podcast and just pick his brain about all the crazy scenarios that he's been a part of. So this was a really cool conversation that Don and I had in Chiang Mai, and yeah, I was just really excited to have him on, so hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the sourcing table. With us today is a good friend of mine who I met in China quite a few years back, Mr. Don Wilder. Don is an expert in the field of product development and crowdfunding, so just wanted to bring him here, give us some background on his story, how he got involved in product development, and give us some tips and advice about how to launch a good crowdfunding campaign. Don, how you doing?
Good, Mike. Yeah, thanks for the invite to interview.
For sure. Can you give us some background as to how you got started in this business and
sure.
What got you going in the game?
Well, as you know, back in about 2012 is when I first really saw the opportunity to do product development. Before coming to China in 2010, I studied graphic design and marketing stateside, back in Portland, Oregon, and then in Idaho, where I'm from. A mutual friend, you also know Ryan. Ryan launched a crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter for a set of men's fashion watches. He did really well.
Original Grain, whoever wants to check that out.
Yeah, Original Grain, and he just killed it. This is in 2012. So Kickstarter as a platform was just getting started. Our group of friends just saw that, wow, this is possible to actually source and develop products and then get it onto crowdfunding and see success. So at that point, I just started considering, what type of product could I develop, looking at it more closely. I had a friend at the time, a Chinese guy, that actually owned a couple factories doing plastic molds. So I shared a few ideas with Daniel, and Daniel said, hey, I've got another friend who has an industrial design company. So the three of us teamed up and decided we're gonna have our hand at developing a couple products. So we did, and the first one that we launched was a brand of men's fashion belts called Eastwood Slider Belts. And we went on to Kickstarter in 2013, and it was a success. In about 30 days, we raised close to 125,000 USD.
Beyond the belts, what were some of the other campaigns that you were involved in? What were some of the other products that you were involved in?
For me personally, products, I did a couple belt campaigns, and then another product that did well was a portable ergonomic laptop stand. The idea came to me one day when I was in Shenzhen. Shenzhen has a really big electronics market called Huachangbei. Some of you guys may have heard of it. I would go to the markets and just kind of roam around. They have these buildings that go up maybe 5 or 6 stories, and you can just get lost in there. And a lot of these are factories that are pushing newer products or just OEM products. While I was roaming around in there, I came across a little phone stand that was made out of aluminum alloy, right? It had 3 plates that you could kind of fold open. It had kind of a little hinge system there. It looked nice. It had kind of a real Apple aesthetic with that silver aluminum alloy. And I thought, are there any stands like this that would be suitable for a laptop? That was one of the ideas that I presented to my 2 friends that I was working with, and we developed a laptop stand, and I called it the Ridge stand. It took about a month and a half to prototype, and then another couple of weeks to do our marketing. And once we got up on Kickstarter, we did about a 45-day campaign, if I recall, and raised close to 75,000 USD with that product. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Sounds like a lot of this stuff you were doing, you were able to do it possibly because you had a lot of these connections in China. You know, you had access to the designers, you were friends with people, you had factories, you could walk out your house to watch on video and go see all these products firsthand. But a lot of people who are watching this and a lot of people that we come in contact with or acquire with SourceFind Asia, you know, they're based elsewhere. You know, they're in the States or they're in Europe, wherever they are, and they have aspirations to maybe do their job or to develop a new product. Is it essential for product development and eventually, you know, starting your own brand? Is it essential to be at the hub of manufacturing in China?
Good question. I would say it's not completely necessary, right? But it's definitely helpful. Right now, because of you can access so many things online, you can find people to help you prototype or develop products, do QC, whatever it is, through just an online channel. But if the manufacturer or if the company that you're trying to reach is right next door or just down the road, you're going to have a lot better communication with them, and the whole process is going to speed up a lot. I would say for simpler products, you definitely wouldn't need to, but if you have the opportunity to visit Asia and go to China to see the manufacturer, it's going to really help you understand the whole process of product development. And some of these, when you develop a product, there are just so many details that come out. So by being there and being more hands-on, almost 100% you're going to come out with a better product in the end.
I agree. I always try to tell people too, if you're getting into this for the first time, you're going to develop an ODM product, you're going to develop something new, you really have to be passionate about it, or at least passionate about the process of developing something new, because it takes forever. And I agree with you. I don't think it's impossible to develop something that's manufactured out of Asia from abroad, but I think in China, especially from my experience there, the more you're in their face and the more they see you and the more physical pressure you're putting them through on, the more attention they're going to give to your product.
For sure.
So other than that aspect of not being in proximity, as someone who's developed a new product from start to finish, what are some other obstacles, roadblocks that you might deal with a Chinese factory? Or you could also put that into some of the partnerships you've had with some of the other people you've worked with. What are some things that you should look out for?
Doing business in China has plenty of challenges. You've got a language barrier, a cultural barrier. Let's just say when you're trying to work closely with the manufacturer, you have to understand their point of view. So a lot of these factories, whether small or large, they're looking to try to get as big of an order as possible with the least amount of work or amount of thinking. If you give them, your ideas or your designs for new products, don't leave any gaps, right? What I mean is try to make sure that you get all of the specs, all of the sizing, all of the color dimensions, everything down to a T, and don't leave any room for error, because those little margins are kind of gaps where you're letting the factory choose for you. That can lead to some huge problems later on, especially when you go into production. Whatever your product is, you may be developing something completely new, right? You don't have a lot to go off of as far as other examples, but you're gonna want to try to get as familiar with that space as possible and with that product in order to give them good guidelines. I've seen it happen many times on a couple items that I've developed, and then mostly with other friends, their experiences. Another thing with Chinese manufacturers is when they say yes, it doesn't always mean yes, right? I know you've run into this. It's a culture that typically wants to please. We can make it, right. And then later on, you find out that it's not quite the case. So watch out for that. Another thing is your MOQ, right? Your minimum order quantity. You might find a factory that is happy to make a sample for you, and it may be suitable to what you like. When you find out later they're expecting 10,000 units, and you were thinking a small batch, now you've got trouble. So just simple things like that.
One other thing I wanted to ask you was, when you first put up your first campaign, when when you talk about Ryan, that was 2012. I think I was a part of the project around the same time, which was the Bongo.
Yeah, I remember, right?
So I think that was kind of like the sweet spot for products going up on crowdfunding. It was the first like wave of products. I think that was a different market than we're dealing with now. Now it's kind of saturated. There's so many companies that are doing this. So I just wanted to get your take on how crowdfunding has changed from 2012 when you first started until now, and then what are some things you have to do now to ensure that your campaign, you know, gets the necessary amount of eyeballs on it that it needs in order to be successful?
A few parts to that question for sure. Like in 2010 to 2013, 14, there really weren't as many campaigns, so it was just easier to get funded because you had a lot of organic traffic that was getting pushed to your page, right? So now it's not that way. You really have to find, have a strategy for setting yourself apart from the other campaigns, because I've seen some really good products and really good marketing for the campaigns that go up on Kickstarter and they don't get funded. I'm kind of shocked. So there's a few things that you can do to improve your chances of success, and that is some simple things like set a reasonable funding goal. I see some guys, they're like thinking, I'm gonna shoot for the stars and go high, so if I do make it, I'm gonna have a little bit of extra money. Don't even think like that. Like, know what your costs are gonna be, know what it's gonna take to just cover costs to move forward. I would say that's important. One thing that most campaigns are doing now is a pre-launch process. So before, we used to just put together a campaign, throw it on Kickstarter, launch it out, and let it run. And now that's kind of a big no-no. You just don't do that. You really need to go out.
Hard time having to see that campaign,
because it's hit or miss, right? So if you don't stay towards the top of the rankings and you drop down, it's kind of like going underwater. You're sinking, right? So the more visits you have to your page, it's gonna take you up to the top, to the surface. So make sure that you do a pre-launch and engage a community before you go onto the platform, which means reaching out to some key influencers for your space and trying to get them involved, or at least aware of your campaign before you launch. I would also suggest having a budget, an advertising budget, if depending on what type of product and everything that you're launching. But
a lot of people suggest targeted ads, bringing people to a landing page where you give them some background on the product. Maybe they sign up for some sort of email campaign where you're giving updates about the product and the production process, correct? For
sure. Landing pages, it's pretty standard. Also, consider your customer profile or your backer profile. What type of guys are really gonna like your product, right? So if you're developing whatever it is, if it's a speaker could hit so many different customer profiles, but what type of person are you really trying to engage? Really try to get as specific as possible, because it will be helpful for you when you do start testing your ads and reaching out to people to launch your product.
Most definitely. For the sourcing table, we do a physical meetup here in Chiang Mai, and we're looking to take that out to other cities as well. But Don came to speak at one of the last meetups, and that was one of the main things I took from him speaking, and just using that for my advice and my communication with my customers, as well as some of the products I'm trying to develop, is he really honed in on targeting that niche market. Don't take things out too broad and try to please everyone. If you really hone in on the people who like your stuff and those are your customers, that's the best way to gain some traction and you can get a foothold in that market, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Last thing I want to talk about before we go is you have a new crowdfunding campaign that is in the works.
Yeah.
You've been developing a new product, and I thought you'd give us a
Sure. It is new. It's not really hardware. It's a tabletop game. It's a card game.
I actually played it, by the way. I tested it.
It's basically all around comedy, scenario role play, and it could be a party type of game, or we'll have two versions. It's been a fun project, and I think it has some legs to it. So right now I'm just building that community, like I mentioned. I produced 300 packs, so I'm sending out to influencers, getting them to play test, getting feedback, and then kind of rallying some support. We hope to launch mid-January. So
is there anywhere right now that people can start to get?
Yeah, I have a landing page. The web page is called dramamayhem.com.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
and we'll post that along with the video so you can check it out. And is there any way that people can get in contact with you, ask you any questions, inquiries about the game or anything?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you my email, and you can post it in the comment section. Yeah.
We'll do that. Don, appreciate your time.
Cool, man.
Good
Yeah, it's a
talking.
pleasure. All right.
See you next time.
All right. Thanks, Mike.